Hello, I'm Richard Vobes, the Bald Explorer, and I'm sitting in a church. This church is a beautiful church in Pycombe, the Shepherd's Church it's called. Pycombe is, I don't know how many miles, about 5 miles north of Brighton in East Sussex, just off the A23, the London to Brighton road. And it's a beautiful looking church with some wonderful history all around, and it's on the South Downs Way. In fact, you pass, if you're going on the famous South Downs Way, you'll actually pass the church, and interestingly there's a little room to the side that says it's open and you can make yourself a cup of tea. So I think as pilgrims would have travelled across that route for many, many years, in old times and modern times, it's a place that has been of service to travellers, and it's lovely that it still does that. So I found it by chance, actually, as I was coming back from having made another video somewhere else. My sitting in a church is one of these streams of consciousness that I do, a sort of talk, but I haven't overly thought out what I want to say, but I have an idea. And today's subject is actually thinking. And the question I have is, do you sit down and think? Now, I'm not talking about professionally. We know that if you're, most professions, if you've got to design something or you've got to approach a project or something, you've got to think about the work you've got to do, how you're going to do it, you've got to plan things, that sort of thing. I'm not really talking about that. I'm talking about actually sitting down to think. Because it strikes me that a lot of people, the minute there is silence, they like to fill it with something. You know, so you wake up in the morning and you look at your phone, or you turn the radio on, you get in the car, you switch the radio on. It's almost as if you can't bear the sound of silence, because silence, almost by definition, makes you want to listen, and makes you want to listen to your own thoughts. And I think people sometimes are frightened about what might pop into their head, the thoughts there are. They might start worrying about things, worrying about work, worrying about relationships and that sort of thing. And I wonder why in this world we fill our heads with so much information that we continually want to divert our attention away from ourselves and our being. So that's the question I'm posing in this contemplation as I sit here in a church. And of course a church is the perfect environment to come and think. And that's what I want to know is, do you, please comment, please let me know, do you make time to deliberately sit down somewhere, maybe in your front room, maybe with a cup of tea, and not divert your attention to other things, but actually just sit and think, contemplate, ponder on the world, ponder on things that are going on in your life, things that are important to you, or just about the act of being itself. Because I don't think people do. I don't think people quite have that confidence. That we're always diverting our attention to something else, that we think that almost doing nothing is bad for you. It's almost, I suppose you might think of it as a sort of daydreaming about something. So do you think? And if you do, what is it you're thinking of? Are you thinking about where you are in life? Thinking about, as I said before, relationships, work, worries? Do you fill your mind with positive thoughts about things that you are looking forward to, planning things? Or can you just silence your mind and let those things that want to pop into your mind just pop into your mind? I think if you're a creative person, I don't know, I mean, I'm a creative person, so sometimes I will sit down and just think and follow a train of thought. Sometimes I'll concentrate on one idea, things like big ideas like, am I happy? What would I like out of life? Where do I want to go? What do I think of myself? These are big, big thoughts. How have I changed? Sometimes I think just having that space, that time to let yourself collect your argument. The other question you could ask yourself is, how do you think? I'm not sure people really know how to think, which might sound counterintuitive, but I record a podcast every day for my patrons, which is called The Naked Englishman. And in it, I really don't know what I'm going to talk about until I switch on the recorder, and then something pops into my head and away I go. Sometimes I've got an idea, but mostly I don't. In a way, sometimes it's a bit of a confessional. I'll confess things that I've been doing. And in other ways, it is a way of me to take from my head concepts or ideas and try and articulate them. They don't always come out the way I intended, and I think, well, I could have articulated that better. And I think that's a great way of thinking. I do that in the car a lot, actually. I don't switch on the radio unless there's something particular I want to listen to. And I often, if you're on a long journey, it's a great time to think. But what I try when I think, and I think this is not an unusual thing, is I try to articulate my thoughts out loud. So I'll speak them like I am now. I haven't prepared a script for this. This is, as I mentioned at the beginning, just a stream of consciousness. I knew I wanted to do something about thinking, and do people think, and do you know how to think, and are there ways to think that are useful? Because it is the one thing that we all should be able to do quite easily. If we had our arms and legs chopped off, we ought to be able to at least think. And you can't help thinking of people like Stephen Hawking, who basically that's all he had was his brain, and so he could exercise his brain and come up with some amazing concepts. And the thing I do is I do speak out loud, and I find that that's really helpful, because you think you know what your thought is or your opinion is on a subject, and it's only when you start to articulate it and try and put it into sentences that make sense, or write it. That's the other option, is you could write it down. It's only then are you changing this weird thought that's in your mind into a language that can be understood and shared by somebody else. And there's something magical about that transformation of taking what you think you know and making it articulate in either the spoken word or the written word, and then other people try to understand it. And when which is why authors, of course, they do many drafts, because the first draft may be long-winded, they may not have chosen the right words, it may be all over the place, but finally they can hone what, once it's out their head, it's a different process to edit it. And although this is unedited, if I was writing a script for a film, of course it wouldn't all be just shot straight off, it would be edited and worked on, but the initial idea has to come out. And that's what I think a lot of thinking is. It's Thinking goes on in there, but there's that process of turning it into useful language. Anyway, I'm curious to know what you think about thinking and whether you sit down to do any thinking. So do leave a comment and let me know. In the meantime, don't forget to follow, like, subscribe, become a patron, support what I do. I'll be out and about doing the best I can. The weather is pretty bleak at the moment. But if you enjoy these quiet contemplations and streams of consciousness on thoughts, then do let me know too. Till the next time, bye-bye.
I hope you're enjoying this video. Why not help me make more and become a patron? A small donation really makes all the difference and keeps me out and about producing these magnificent presentations. So go to boldexplorer.com and become a patron today.